Hello, my fellow readers. This is Dark Symphony 777 with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story, and finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story I'm doing a review of today is Honor Bound by Starving Lunatic. It is a Kim Possible fanfiction, and if you don't know who Starving Lunatic is, she was at a time a very prolific Kigo shipper. Kigo being Kim Possible and Shigo. I don't think she does Kim Possible stories anymore. And I have also done works of her. I have reviewed other stories of her in the past. That's actually going to be important to this story because I'm going to have to bring up one of her stories. Because oh boy, I don't like this story. I don't like this story at all. I I don't. Uh, it's a headache. It's a hassle. I want to read like good stories. And I thought, oh hey, Kim, these stories weren't really bad except for one in a billion with the whole kid subplot getting so weirdly political, and just the kid just being so horrendously horrible people and just justifying it because of who their parents are. Uh, Honor Bound is completely different. Honor Bound has a very, very specific problem with one very specific part of the story that I'll get into. But before that, I need to actually talk about the plot and characters. What is the plot? Well, the plot of Honor Bound technically is complicated. In essence, it takes place in the Tokugawa era of Japan, i.e. 1600 to 1867, which was the last shogunate era of Japan's history before they went to, like, I think, a democracy. That's what they are doing now. Or imperialist into, like, post-World War II with the bombs. Long story short, this takes place far in the past, and the author more or less decides, I'm going to take this specific time frame of Japan and Kim Possibilify it. And fine, I can get the idea behind it. You just want to do something creative, but it doesn't act like that because you take like the wrong. Sorry about that. You take like the wrong lessons from that and apply it to the story. For one thing, you don't do anything with the time frame. Next to nothing about the story won't work in like any time frame. Like when you're trying to do like something, you're trying to do like this historical thing and it's set within a time frame. You need to implement elements that correspond with the time frame. The problem is with the plot, the author doesn't do that. Instead, the author just like, here is just an era Japan, a time in Japan, and Kim Possibilifies it, which means you take all the elements from Kim Possible and you apply it to this, with no elements from this area of Japan to kind of compensate, to kind of balance out the Kim Possibleness. And that's the first problem. So many elements of Kim Possible in the story without like no justification. I'll get more into that when I get to the characters because it's going to be very prominent with the characters, but keep that in mind. Kim Possible, yes, her name is Kim Possible in the story, and not, I don't know, Kim Kano, which is like the Japanese word for possible. I literally spent 5 minutes going on Google Translate, typed impossible to Japanese, and there you go. Kim Possible is a renowned samurai of the Possible clan, quote, and she's hired by Betty Director in order to find out a plot to assassinate the shogun of Japan, which turns out to be Shigo's brother for some ungodly reason. Well, yeah, there is a reason to make sure Shigo gets away with everything, which is another issue I have with this author sometimes. Uh, what was I? Oh yeah, yeah. Betty hires Kim and also Yori, Ron Stoppable's girlfriend in this world as geisha girls, which are, if you don't know who geishas are basically these demure girls who are meant to act as companions and courtesans to people who want to vent, usually men. They do get a reputation for being like sex symbols, which are they are not. They're really just there. It's like there's the tea, there's the girl to the side. The guy's like kind of have some tea, and the girl will just slightly just pour the tea, and then they're under like rules. Like the guys can say whatever they want. The girls can't say anything about it. The girls have boundaries. So there's a lot of technical aspects with like geisha work. But more or less, Kim and Yor are meant to be undercover as geisha girls and uncover the assassination plot that's being perpetrated by Draken and Senior. That's a mouthful. Shigo is acting as a bodyguard pretending to be a guy because she can't come into the geisha area as a girl unless she's a geisha. She has to come in as a guy, so she dresses up and dolls herself up as a guy to kind of just be able to get in there to protect Draken. They do eventually find the information. They try and capture them. They do capture Draken and Senor, but Shigo gets them out. They get to another castle. They kind of hold themselves up, and then Betty basically does all these plans. Kim just like, I'm just gonna break in regardless if I can. Gets in, captures them again, has to fight Shigo. Shigo manages to run off. Kim traces Shigo's, they fight each other. Kim beats Shigo, because it's another thing we're gonna have to talk about. And that's just the first half. The entire second half of the story is them just walking back to Ito and then just beating up a bunch of other random guys from Kim Possible's Rogue Gallery for no fucking reason. Like, that's just. You have an entire story that's just based around an assassination attempt, and then you have half of the story just them walking, going to a place, find out there's some kind of weird issue, usually involving a villain from Kim Possible. They solve it in like 5 seconds, and then they just will continue walking on, just doing nothing. Just saying that they love each other, and then having sex. Okay. That's what I have a problem with the plot. It's just, it makes no sense. You have a plot that's predicated on an assassination attempt. Okay, we don't meet the Shogun because the author wants to hide the Shogun as Higo until the very end to basically justify Shigo's behavior throughout the entire story, which is so astronomically bullshit. I'm getting ahead of myself. This story just gives me problems. Just gives me headaches all the time. I hate these types of stories. I hate these types of stories that are so shit. You have a plot that's predicated on an assassination attempt. You try to weirdly hide certain information that's pertinent to justify a random ass shock factor twist for the sake of having a twist idea. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't, because when it comes to a plot like this, and you need Kim to be undercover. First off, Yori has no purpose in the story whatsoever. She's just there. Second off, the fact that the author writes Draken and Senior to be incredibly stupid. I get there's an in-universe reason why they just blab about the plan like immediately, because they're in like a courtesan house. They are allowed to speak it, and the geishas by the rules of the courtesan, they're not allowed to talk about it. So I get why. It's just their plan makes no sense. But at least that gets acknowledged in story by Shigo. It's like, I'm just following them because they're just gonna do something stupid. They're more likely gonna fail because the plan seems stupid. I'm just gonna laugh at them. You know? That's. And then after you spent half of the story doing the goddamn assassination plot. You just do a random, they just walk in a straight line, beat up a bunch of people for like barely any justification besides, oh, they just happen to be a Kim Possible villain, so they have to they have to mildly annoy these two girls, and then the girls just beat up everyone around them. God. Alright, I need to talk about this now because I don't think I'm gonna last till what I need to talk about. I don't Something that drew me to the original story because I like Kigo, I like the idea behind Kigo. But as I was going through each of these author's stories, as I was reading through it, I realized the author really, really loves to let both Kim and especially Shigo get away with literally everything. They have they get no consequence, like this story. Shigo is allowed to pretty much just beat up anyone she wants, attack whenever she wants, work for Dragon, attack an assassination attempt, but it gets wiped away with like next to nothing for just because her brother happens to be Shogun. That just shows up bumfuck out of nowhere. And what's even worse is Shigo tries to tell Higo, I'm loving Kim, and Shigo loves me back. Higo's big issue is one, okay, she has a quirk, which, it's understandable in, like, 19th century Japan, 19th century Japan. Is one thing, but then his other main justification is, like, I don't want to ruin a arranged marriage, because in shogunate era Japan, they were a lot of arranged marriages in order to keep powerful families powerful, in order to run the country, because a lot of these families ran districts and areas and acted as daimyos and all that. Shio basically said, I will kill you, I will kill you, and I will take her, run her away, kill anyone who tries to stop us, and basically gets away with it because Higo is the shogun. And this happens throughout every single story that I reviewed of Starving Lunatics. Just Shigo gets to be an absolute monster and gets away with it. And this is the sixth story, because I'm counting the time travel one where they talk about their ancestors, and the one where Shigo is a cop. And Shigo this is the sixth time that the author is pulling this. It's getting tiring. It's just getting annoying seeing the same song and dance without any like, if there was proper justification, fine. Like, or even Shigo kind of getting like egg on her face at one point, fine. But no, this is a sixth story where Shigo's allowed to do whatever she wants, gets to punish whatever she wants, pretty much beats up whoever she wants, and gets away with it, just because of familiar connections. It's just getting annoying. It's getting tiring. And the same thing with Kim. Kim basically just attacks random guys. Okay, there's like a part in the story where Kim is getting ID selected. Like, okay, I'm trying to enter the town. What's ID? She shows the ID. They believe the ID is fake because a running gag in the story is that everyone thinks Kim is a kitsune because of her red hair, which, okay, thematically makes sense because Kim has a lot of animal connections to foxes in the cartoon, so it makes sense to carry that over here. But instead of like arguing or trying to sneak in, she just basically attacks everyone and gets away with it because, oh, I'm Kim Possible, I can get away with everything. Which is another thing that happens in the story with Kim. Just gets away with everything. Granted, it's not as problematic as Shigo, because I think in like the the reincarnation one, that one at least has like him spending large portion of the story as like a doctor and constantly getting like punished. So I don't know, it's like something. So, but it's not as, but Shigo just has it way worse. And just going, and it's even worse once you realize the plot doesn't make sense. So the plot boils down to an assassination attempt and then just a long walk. First off, the assassination is done by Draken, who just wants to. Yeah, there's no reason why Draken and Senor are doing this. They're just, you want to assassinate the Emperor just because. Okay, you want to do a generic thing? Alright, then don't spend half the story building up the assassination attempt, only for the assassination attempt to, to foil without, like, no consequence. Then they run away to another castle that gets breached, like, super easily by Kim, because, again, Kim can do anything. It's... And then they get captured, they get killed, and then every single villain that comes afterwards are immediately taken out with, like, like, a paragraph or two. There's So it boils down to, why do all these villains when you could just focus on the assassination attempt, stretch that over the course of the entire story, and just work better? Like, you could have some of the other villains acting as, like, a rogue galley working with Draken and Senor. Granted, there's a specific villain I would rather have as the assassination attempt, but it would work. But we'll talk about that at the end. It's just a very messy plot that just boils down to the author just getting, like, a hate boner for, like, all the villains and wanting Shigo and Kim to just do whatever they want with, like, no way of like, the closest thing Shigo gets to consequences actually lies about defeating, like, more monkeys and Kim because, oh, they tie. And he goes, like, I want to be better than Kim because I want to protect Kim, despite the fact Kim doesn't need protection because she's Kim. So I'm going to not only lie to Kim, but I'm going to reveal that I lied while drunk. And then nothing happens besides nothing. And the closest thing Shigo gets, like, any sort of yelling is when she takes Kim's sword because one of Kim's swords is, like, a container that holds demons, which is another waste of space. Like, you have an entire plot point that is based around the idea, like, 100 soldiers attack the land where the possible family controls. They are stopped by Kim's grandmother, Mim, while she was younger. She defeats all of them by herself. They are so angry that they got their ass whooped 100-1. They turn into yokai, and then bum rush the same location, specifically trying to kill Mim. She kills them again, and then they get so pissed that they died a second time, and 100-1 loss that they possess the sword. So now Mim has to control the sword. She passes it down to Kim. Kim has to specifically jump head first into doing a bunch of good deeds in order to prevent the demons from essentially possessing her. So it's basically like a karma system for Kim. Like, okay, I have to keep jumping into, like, these good deeds, even if I don't know the information. As long as it's a good deed, I can keep the sword from possessing or hurting other people. That's a good idea. Except it pops up once in the beginning because they mention the sword that Kim doesn't draw, because Kim is worried that if she does draw the sword, then that will increase the chances of her being possessed. So she doesn't draw the sword. Instead, she just keeps it on her body at all times. Yeah, fair enough. It's mentioned one time, but just explaining what the sword is, and then it's not mentioned another time until the end of the story, where Team Impossible, which is, like, these 3 random guys that work for Betty Director, take the sword out of jealousy, and when one of the guys just gets possessed, and then Kim just beats him in, like, a couple seconds. So why do the whole plot line for the sword if it's not gonna matter at any point? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at the beginning. It doesn't matter in the middle. It doesn't matter at the end when it actually happened, because at that point you're just at the end and you're just doing the plot line just to wrap up the plot line, to just have another villain for Kim to effortlessly beat. And I get it. Kim Possible's, the whole thing is Kim Possible can do anything. That's another problem I have with the story. This story follows season 1 Kim. I'm delving into the characters now. Kim in this story is more based on her season 1 self, who is more selfish, who is more perfectionist, who is still a very flawed character. And guess what? In season 1, she does tend to goof up more often because she's still trying to figure out how to balance everything around her due to being a perfectionist. So she makes mistakes. She actually lost a few times in season 1. She does get better. She does get more perfect. Like, she does even out everything as the stories go, so she becomes harder to actually defeat. But this is season 1 Kim. Why are you applying season 1 Kim's character, who is so gung-ho and trying to be perfectionist, granted, in-story reason why she's trying to do that, and then not have her lose a single time? Even in the way it makes sense for Shigo, like, Kim and Shigo's fight should have ended with Shigo actually winning, like, or at worst, a draw, to show that as good as Kim thinks she is, she's not up to Shigo's level. Who's traveled more, who knows how to fight, who knows how to do that. It would show the skill gap and probably be like a better representative of the dynamic of Shigo and Kim, because again, going back to Shigo's whole I want to protect Kim storyline, this would have been fine if Shigo actually beat Kim and she's still trying to like maintain that vibe. It's like, okay, I beat Kim, someone else could also beat Kim, so I want to protect her as much as I can, so I lied to her. That would make more sense. With other characters, we have another issue where the author is trying way, way too hard to implement characters and their personalities into the story. Like with Ron. Okay, you expect like Ron of Tokugawa era Japan to probably be like completely different. But probably in charge of like the Yamanouchi school for ninjas. No, he just acts like Ron. Which makes no sense. And you're only doing Ron like this because that's how he acts in canon. Which makes no sense, because here's the thing. I don't know if anyone's ever told you, but this is fan fiction. You are within your right to change characters, change personalities, change what they look like in order to fit the narrative. If Ron needed to be more different in order to better fit the narrative, like being a more stoic personality to contrast Kim's more rough, tumble nature, then yeah, go ahead. Have him be in charge of Yamanuchi. That would make most sense. With Shigo, you know what would make more sense for Shigo in this story? Not to be green, not to have plasma, and definitely not to have an exact one-for-one backstory of her canon from Kim Possible. Which is like, I even told my girlfriend, it's like, I bet you, if they talk about Shigo's backstory, it's gonna be one for one. Just her backstory from the show. It's gonna be so fucking stupid. And guess what? It was! Why? Why? You could have done anything. Now, you could have just made Shigo a demon. That would have been interesting. Make her own. Because that would have at least, one, had a different dynamic with Kim's whole sword plot line. And also would have at least gave justification for like the green skin. It's like, okay, she's an Oni, so she kind of has like a different shade, and you could even like picture her like her having the straw hat to hide her horns and stuff like that. It would be interesting. No, it just like, no, I was in the backyard with my brothers, and a meteor passed and crashed, and we all got the powers. It makes it's like and even worse, the author uses so many villains. So it uses Draken, Senior, Junior. Technically, Junior kind of becomes, it's kind of like a neutral party in the show.
because he's kind of just a little kid. They use Dean Amy. They use Monkey Fist. They use Prince Wally, who's like a minor villain. They use Steel Toe, Pain King, and the Jackal, which is like a random fucking ass villain. Uh, they use Team Impossible, who's not really villains, they're more of antagonists because they don't like the fact that Kim kind of just does things by her own instead of doing code. Weird thing. And then use Motorhead, which is another villain that makes no sense, and you're just trying to one for one put their characters and their quirks and their what they do into an era which doesn't justify anything. Like, okay, you have Motorhead. Okay, what is he gonna do in the story? Oh, he just rides a bunch of cars, which is what he already does in canon. And what's even worse? You had Monkey Fist. You had Monkey Fist, the villain that would have the villain. This guy, which who would have made the most sense as the main villain. He's just reduced to showing up like for a single chapter and then getting immediately out curb stomped by Chigo with like no like any fight. It's like, okay, why? You have the villain that would make the most sense for a story set in medieval in Tokugawa era Japan. The one villain who works as a oriental villain whose whole master plan revolves around knowledge of a in-universe fictional Japanese martial art, and he only shows up in like half a chapter and immediately gets outplayed by Shigo. Oh, but he does evil. You're gonna get stretched out over the course of the entire story. Have him be the main villain. It's so bad. There's so many shit writing decisions, and it gets even worse. Like grammar. Okay, this one has a unique situation, and I need to actually show the specific chapter. Where is it? Right here. Now, in certain stories that take place in like certain locations across the globe, whether it be Russia, Japan, like any country or any that has a different language other than English. Common courtesy, otherwise known as suspension of disbelief, is going to automatically think, okay, they're speaking in like Russian or Japanese or Spanish, whatever, whichever language. The author writes it in English, specifically to translate what they're saying. So that way, when they actually speak their language, it kind of comes off more as a cool moment, or like, okay, just to remind you that they are actually speaking in this language, but it's just translated for more convenience's sake. The thing with that is you typically want to have a cliff note. Now, in novels, because I actually remember a specific novel that does touch upon this, is called Fatherland. Let me actually get a picture of it. Fatherland by Robert Harris. In this story, which takes place a couple months after the end of World War II. Basically, Germany's picking up the pieces, and there's a string of murders going on, and a detective is trying to figure out what's going on to see if not, there's still remnants of the Nazi party and all that. Everyone is assumed in story to be speaking German, but all the text and everything is being said in English. This is supposed to translate to us that, yes, they are speaking German, it's just being translated for the sake of convenience to us. If someone speaks a German phrase in the story, there's usually a little clip notes at the bottom of the page that tells you what the phrase and sentence is translated to. You typically want to have the story at the bottom, basically like this. Tanuki, raccoon animal, dogs, explanation, the nine-tailed fox, stuff like that. The author is very inconsistent. The author will go, oh, a Tanuki? Kim's guess? Maybe an Inu? And then just have the word translated right next to it. It's inconsistent. And this happens throughout the entire story. Sometimes it'll say the one to go right at the bottom. Sometimes it'll just translate it right here. It messes with people's brain when they see inconsistencies like that, because it catches their eye and they get distracted by the whole thing. it is a minor thing, but it's such a problematic because it's something you typically do not want to see. You really don't want to see stuff like this. And then it gets worse. The writing itself is bad. So now, do you want to know something that's very common? You definitely do not ever want to do. Show, don't tell. That is one of the central tenets of writing. You have to show, not tell. This story does the opposite. It is so much telling in the story that it just is redundant. Like there's a part where Draken and Senor and Shigo are stuck in their castle and they're trying to go on. And one chapter says Shigo's contemplating leaving Draken and Senor to get themselves caught and killed. All right, that's fine enough. There's something that's tracking. And then later in the chapter, it has Shigo contemplate that again. Why? And then in the next chapter, she contemplates it again, almost word for word, contemplating the same thing. It's like there's so much redundant text because the author wants to tell you everything that I actually went back. I went back. I went back to Walk in the Line. I thought, okay, Walk in the Line was written before Honor Bound. So it's like, okay, it has to be something that she's just learning herself out of. And then I read the first chapter, and it's not as bad as an Honor Bound. Yes, there is telling in this story, overshowing. But at least with Walk in the Line, I think it's like early enough in her writing because she started in like 2005, like late 2005, and this story was like beginning of 2006. So at least this is understandable for doing the telling thing. Because okay, she's learning herself out of it, and trying to learn the ropes. I can forgive that. But this story was written. Where is it? Where is it? April, November of 2006. She had a full year of nonstop writing, more or less, where she doesn't. Not only does it still tell, but it gets worse. How do you even, how how does this happen? I am going to tell in the story, but I'm going to tell worse. It's so, wow, so bad. It's so laughably bad how bad the telling is. There's so much telling that you can that this story is like 190 words. You can get rid of most, if not all, the redundant, and you can cut this story in half. That is, you can get rid of like close to 100,000 if I had to take a guess. That is how much redundant text is in this story. That is a crazy and psychotic thought. Oh my god! Why? Why does this exist? Why? No, it's laughable. Like I said, I can understand this having a lot of telling. And even then, this just is not as bad as this. How do you evolve backwards in your writing? No, so bad. Oh my god. Oh, the more I talk about it, the more I'm laughing. Okay. What I... Sorry. I'm not gonna do it. Oh my god, I'm breaking down just from just just coming to terms with the whole stupidity of it. Would I recommend? No, I can't recommend the story. I can't. I just can't. There's so much. There's so much. Ignoring everything with the plot and the characters. The fact that half of the story is redundant because it just how much needless fluff there is in it. So much shit repeats itself over and over. It's crazy. I what would I do? What would I do to change the story? I'm not even gonna. There's nothing I would. There's no good part. Okay, so what would I change about the story? Honestly, get rid of Yori, get rid of Ron, get rid of every single villain except for Monkey Fist. Keep Kim, keep Betty, keep Vivian, keep Shigo. Have Monkey. If you want, you can have Draken helping Monkey Fist, or even like the Seniors helping Monkey Fist, or just any other villain besides Motor Ed, because Motor Ed's just a fucking idiot. Like, no, don't put Motor Ed in the story. Anyone that's not a Motor Ed, have him be the villain. First off. Second off, have the main conflict for Kim be the sword. Focus on the sword, and you can parlay that into transforming Shigo into an Oni. That way she doesn't have the plasma thing. Instead, she has ridiculously physical prowess. Like, even when they fight, just say, oh, skill can only take you so much if you get knocked out in one hit. Have Shigo, when Kim and Shigo fight, Kim's like constantly doing like all her skills and stuff like that. Shigo is skilled herself, but she can't keep up with Kim. Gets a lucky hit, completely one-shots Kim, decides to want to leave, but then realizes she still kind of cares for her, protects her, and you get a whole conflict with whether or not Shigo wanting to admit that, she's not human, she's a yokai, and thus her presence may complicate the issues with the sword. Like, her issue just being near Kim could like rile up the yokai in the sword to make things more risky. Have Kim be like more stubborn in like certain beliefs, like have her turn her strength of stubbornness into a weakness, where she just is so stubborn that she just kind of gets herself into trouble because she's so gung ho on preventing the yokai from getting out of the sword. She's worried, like the conflict kind of writes itself. Like, okay, she goes an Oni. Wait, she goes a yokai, and the sword and the demons and the sword. So all the 100 demons and the sword, they start reacting to her. You can even parlay that. Like, you can, like, if every time she goes near, like, she feels that the sword is shaking. You can have, Shigo more or less being the like strength and skill. Like, you have the skill one with Kim, you have the strength with Shigo. You can transform Shigo's character slightly much. Another thing I at least like about the story, the author did do Shigo's character justice, made her more contemplative. You can parlay that into her Oni thing. Like, okay, Onis are known as like very physical brute. She wants to have like her own honor code of being like following the Bushido way. So uh instead of like relying on brute force, like she wants to rely on like learning how to use a sword, but she's not that good at a sword because one, katana will probably break under her strength, so she probably has like, I don't know, do international flare, give her a claymore, give her like a great sword, give her like a heavier sword to kind of compensate for the fact that she's ridiculously strong. There's lots you can do, and just have the entire story of like Kim having to being forced to work with Shigo to take down Monkey Fist, and Monkey Fist like planning this whole elaborate conflict, assassination. You can have, I don't know, some random person. If you really want to have the cool Kim connection with the Shogun, have it be Barkin. Honestly, that would be pretty funny. Like, Barkin would make a hilarious Shogun. No, but that's that. Like, there is a lot of ideas you can do with this. You can even parlay the whole Kitsune ideology by not having Kim be a samurai, have her be a ninja, but she just has to keep the sword because the whole skill thing. You have the skill ninja, uh, strength with the show with you know contemplating being like the samurai, but like having to like bend the rules because of her own nature. There's a lot you could do with the idea that just at least fits better. You can still do the whole romance thing with like them having to unite and kind of get to know each other and figure how to have everything work with like the dynamic between them to kind of have them do the romance as they're trying to find out about Monkey Fist's plan to assassinate the Shogun. There's a lot you can do with the idea. So yeah, that is honor bound. I don't think I have anything else to say about it. Yeah. This has been Dark Symphony 777. I will see you next time, and